It began with a sound, the faint, sharp crack of painted clay shattering on a plush wool rug. It was the sound of a small, hand-painted bird, a gift my daughter Sophie had spent a week perfecting. She had just dropped it. Her small hand was still open, hovering in the air. She was completely still. She's only 12, and she was standing there in a new burgundy silk dress, a dress my mother had insisted she get. The classical Christmas music was still drifting from hidden speakers. The thousands of tiny white lights on the enormous fir tree were still glittering, but the very air in the grand room had become thin and sharp, and a deep chill had settled over everything. My mother, Eleanor, was looking directly at her. She hadn't raised her voice. She had spoken in a low, precise tone, but those words were still hanging in the air, more brutal than any shout. "You're not my real granddaughter. Leave." I watched the light, the very essence of my child, just extinguish from her eyes. I felt my own heart stutter in my chest. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some holiday friction boiling over. My mother had waited for this moment. She had orchestrated it. She wanted to shatter my daughter, and in doing so, she wanted to shatter me. I looked from my daughter's devastated face to my mother's serene, icy expression, and I understood this was the end of something. This wasn't just a family argument. This was war. Before we dive into the whole story, do me a quick favor and like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know. The call that started it all came on a Tuesday, about 3 weeks before Christmas. I was in our cozy little apartment in Portland. Sophie was at our small kitchen table sketching. She was trying to draw a portrait of our cat, who refused to sit still. Our apartment was warm and smelled like the chili I had simmering on the stove. We had a small artificial Christmas tree in the corner, leaning slightly to one side, decorated with 3 mismatched strings of lights. Sophie had hung all the ornaments herself, most of them clustered on one branch. It was perfectly imperfect. It was our home. It was simple, quiet, and above all, it was safe. Then my phone began to ring. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and glanced at the screen. My heart did a weird, uncomfortable lurch. The caller ID read, "Mother." I hadn't seen that name pop up on my phone in over 4 months. She hadn't called for my birthday. She hadn't even texted for Sophie's. She'd sent a card with a check for $25, made out simply to Sophie, not Sophie Pierce. Just Sophie, as if she were a distant acquaintance. "Who is it, Mom?" Sophie asked, looking up from her drawing. It's Grandma Eleanor," I said. Sophie's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide with a hope that always broke my heart a little. "Answer it! Maybe she's calling to say happy belated birthday." I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and pressed the green icon. "Hello, Mother," I said. I was proud of how steady my voice was. I'd practiced that tone for years. "Alexandra, darling?" The voice on the other end was syrupy sweet. It was the voice my mother used when she was charming donors for her charities, the voice she put on when a photographer was nearby. It wasn't her real voice. Her real voice was thin and sharp, like a shard of glass. "I was just thinking of you," she said. "No, you weren't," I thought. "You never think of me unless you need something." "I was just looking at the calendar," she continued, her voice light and breezy. "And can you believe Christmas is just around the corner?" "It tends to arrive on the same date each year," I replied, unable to stop myself. She let out a laugh, a tinkling artificial sound. "Oh, Alexandra, you and your dry wit. Listen, darling, your father and I want you to come to Vail for Christmas. The whole family is going to be here. Mark and Chloe are coming with the kids. It just wouldn't feel like Christmas without you and little Sophie. I glanced over at Sophie. She was already bouncing in her seat, her hands clasped together in a silent, desperate plea. My stomach clenched, a familiar feeling, like I'd just swallowed a rock. My mother's kindness was never a gift. It was a loan with impossibly high interest. It was always a lure with a hook hidden inside, and it would tear you to pieces on the way down. "I don't know, Mother," I said, my voice hesitant. "It's a long drive, and I have my work." "Nonsense," she cut me off, her tone shifting slightly. "You work far too hard at that little job of yours anyway. This is Christmas. It's for family. And Sophie. She simply must experience a real Vale Christmas. The snow, the lights. The house has never looked more beautiful. We insist. Insist. That was the real word. Not invite. A command. "Please, Mom. Please, please, please." Sophie was whispering from the table, her eyes shining. I looked at my daughter's face, so full of pure, uncomplicated hope. She didn't know the history. She didn't understand the cost associated with my mother's generosity. She just wanted a grandmother. She wanted the kind of sprawling, perfect family she saw in holiday movies. How could I possibly say no to that look on her face? That was my Achilles' heel, and my mother knew it. My daughter was my weakness. "Okay, Mother," I said, the word feeling like it was being physically pulled from my throat. "Okay, we'll be there." "Wonderful," she said, her voice suddenly crisp and efficient, all the fake sugar gone. "We'll see you on the 23rd. Dinner is at 7. Try not to be late." And the line went dead. She was gone. I lowered the phone. The only sound in the kitchen was the bubbling of the chili. "Yes!" Sophie shrieked. She launched herself out of her chair and threw her arms around my waist. "We're going! We're really going! A real Christmas! With Grandma and Grandpa and Olivia! A real family Christmas!" She was dancing around our tiny living room, a whirlwind of pure joy. I put my hands on her shoulders, forcing a smile onto my face that felt like a grimace. "It'll be an adventure," I said. She hugged me again, squeezing me tight. "It's going to be the best Christmas ever, Mom. I just know it." I hugged her back, holding on to her small frame, and my gaze fell on our little lopsided tree, then to her half-finished drawing. A wave of nausea washed over me. I knew with a certainty that was chilling that I had just made a terrible mistake. I knew my mother. I knew her invitations weren't gifts. They were summons. They were traps. But I had let hope win. More accurately, I had let Sophie's hope win. I had betrayed my own gut instinct. I had just agreed to walk us willingly into the lion's den, and I was doing it for my daughter. That night, Sophie slept with a smile on her face. I didn't sleep at all. I just sat in the dark of our living room, staring at the blinking lights on our tree, wondering what my mother was planning. What was the price of admission this time? The fear was already a cold knot in my stomach, but I had already said yes. I was trapped. I was trapped by my daughter's happiness and by my own foolish, relentless hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. That this time my mother would finally see us. That she would finally see me. The next day, I met my best friend, Maya, for coffee. Our kids were in the same grade, and Maya was the one person in my world who knew the unedited version of my family story. She had been the one to bring me ice cream after my mother forgot to invite us to Thanksgiving 2 years in a row. She had listened on speakerphone while I sobbed after my father called, drunk and rambling, to apologize for everything, only to pretend the call never happened the next day. I sat across from her in the cozy coffee shop, my hands wrapped around a warm mug. She invited us to Vale for Christmas, I said, the words coming out in a rush. Maya didn't smile. She just held my gaze, her expression unreadable. She took a slow, deliberate sip of her latte. "Alex," she said, her voice flat, "don't." "I already said yes," I mumbled into my mug. "Then say no. Call her back. Tell her Sophie has the flu. Tell her your car died. Tell her you've spontaneously converted to a religion that forbids snow. Tell her anything." "I can't," I said, feeling my resolve crumble. "You should have seen Sophie's face, May. She was just glowing. She's been drawing pictures of Grandma's castle all morning." "Of course she's happy," Maya said, putting her mug down with a firm click. "She's 12. She believes in Santa Claus and happy endings. You're a grown woman. You know who your mother is." "Maybe she's changed," I offered, but the words sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Maya sighed, a long, weary sound. She reached across the small table and placed her hand over mine. Her skin was warm. "Honey, listen to me. People like your mother don't change. They just get older and they get more creative with their cruelty. They reload. She's reloading, Alex. She either wants something or she wants to hurt you. With her, it's always one of the two." I pulled my hand away, a defensive reflex. I didn't want to hear it. "It's just for Christmas. A few days. How bad can it possibly be?" "Just don't forget who she is, Alex," she said quietly. "Don't walk in there thinking you're going home for the holidays. You're a target. And what's worse is you're bringing Sophie into the line of fire with you." I left the coffee shop feeling chilled to the bone, Maya's words echoing in my head. You're a target. But the flights of fancy were already booked in my daughter's mind. The countdown had begun. I pushed Maya's voice down, deep down, along with my own screaming instincts. I let hope win. In the week that followed, the cracks in the facade began to show. My mother called again. This time, her voice was all business. "Alexandra, what will Sophie be wearing for the Christmas Eve dinner?" she asked, no preamble. I bought her a new navy blue satin dress," I said. I was proud of it. It was simple and elegant. There was a beat of silence on the other end. "Navy blue? What shade of navy?" "You know, Chloe is getting Olivia a custom-made burgundy silk dress from that little boutique on Meadow Drive. It's very classic. Navy can be so somber." I felt myself shrink. It was happening already. "It's a lovely dress, Mother." "I'm sure it is, dear," she said dismissively. "Just make sure she looks presentable. We are having important guests." I hung up the phone. I went to Sophie's closet and looked at the navy blue dress. It was classic. It was beautiful. That afternoon, I went out and put a burgundy dress on my credit card. It was far more expensive than I could afford, but I bought it anyway. I wouldn't let my daughter feel somber. I wouldn't let her feel like she was less than her cousin Olivia. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat. It tasted like metal. A few days later, my brother called. "Mark." "Hey, Alex," he said. His voice always sounded exhausted. "Hi, Mark. Are you excited for Christmas?" He was quiet for a moment. "Listen, Mom told me you're coming." "Yes, we are. Sophie can't wait." "Yeah," he said, his voice dropping. "Look, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Mom she's on a bit of a war path." "What do you mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "She's been stressed. The charity gala, the party planning, all of it. She's been biting everyone's head off. Chloe, the kids. She's always like that, Mark." "No, this feels different," he insisted. "She's been talking about you, a lot." A cold dread spread through my chest. "What? What has she been saying?" "Just old stuff," he said, his voice evasive. He sounded afraid of her. He always had been. She's never forgiven you. Forgiven me for what? I snapped, my voice rising. What did I ever do to her? For being a single mom, he blurted out, the words tumbling over each other. For not, handling it quietly. For having Sophie. For embarrassing her. I couldn't breathe. Sophie is not an it, and she is not an embarrassment. I know, Alex, I know, I'm just telling you. She's in a mood, so just keep your head down. Don't poke the bear, okay? I'm not the one who pokes the bear, Mark, I said, my voice dangerously low. I'm the one who gets mauled. He was silent. I have to go, I said, and hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, the silence of the apartment pressing in on me. The crack. I could feel it forming, a long, thin fracture starting in the center of my chest. She's never forgiven you for having Sophie. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about my daughter. My beautiful, brilliant, innocent daughter. My mother saw her as a source of shame, a mistake. I should have called off the trip right then and there. I should have called Maya and told her she was right. But then I looked at the half-packed suitcases on my bedroom floor. I saw the new burgundy dress hanging in its plastic wrap. I looked at the calendar on the wall. 2 days until Christmas. Sophie ran into the room, her face glowing. Mom, I finished it. She was holding up a small, beautifully painted clay bird, a little bluebird with delicate white markings on its wings. It was simple. It was exquisite. It's for Grandma, she said, her face alight with pride. To thank her for inviting us. Do you think she'll like it? I looked at the fragile clay bird. I looked at my daughter's shining, hopeful face, and I felt the crack in my heart split wide open. She will love it, sweetie, I lied. Still, I packed our bags. I packed the burgundy dress. I packed the little gift-wrapped bird. I packed all my fear and all my simmering rage, and I buried it deep, deep inside, under all the fake smiles I was preparing to wear. We were going. The trap was laid, and I was walking us straight into it, pulling my daughter along by the hand. The drive to Vail was quiet. The first snowflakes began to fall just as we were leaving the Portland city limits. Big, fat flakes that splattered on the windshield. Sophie was in the passenger seat, too excited to sit in the back. She was tracking our progress on my phone's GPS. Mom, look, she would say, pointing a small finger. Look at the mountains. They're huge. Is Grandma's house on top of a mountain? Sort of, I said. It's in a valley, but it's very high up. Is it a mansion? It's a very big house, I understated. With every mile that passed, the knot in my stomach grew tighter. The car felt claustrophobic, the air too thin. I was driving our old, reliable sedan, and I knew that in the driveway of my parents' home, it would be surrounded by black and silver European cars that cost more than our entire apartment building. We pulled into the long, heated, winding driveway 2 hours later. The Pierce home in Vail wasn't a home. It was a statement of wealth and power. A 3-story monument of dark wood, steel, and glass nestled among snow-dusted pine trees. Every single window was professionally decorated with glittering white lights. It looked like a page from an architectural magazine. It looked sterile. Wow, Sophie whispered from beside me. It's like a castle. It was a castle, and my mother was its queen. I parked my car at the far end of the driveway, tucked away behind my brother's brand new SUV and a sleek black sedan I didn't recognize. Okay, sweetie, I said, forcing a cheerful tone. Let's go. Remember your manners. Yes, Mom. She grabbed her backpack, clutching the small, perfectly wrapped gift box containing the little bird. We walked up the heated stone pathway. The air was frigid and clean. so cold it hurt to breathe. I rang the doorbell and we waited, hearing the faint strains of a classical Christmas concerto from inside. The massive door swung open. My father, Richard, stood there. He was holding a heavy crystal tumbler filled with amber liquid. Whiskey. "Oh," he said, blinking as if surprised to see us. "You're here." "Hi, Dad." "Merry Christmas, Grandpa," Sophie said, beaming up at him with a wide, brilliant smile. "Yes, Merry Christmas," he mumbled, not smiling back. He just looked at us, his eyes bloodshot and weary. "Come in. You're letting all the cold in." We stepped into the cavernous foyer. The ceiling soared 30 feet high. A gigantic Christmas tree dominated the adjacent living room, meticulously decorated in silver and gold ornaments, not a single one out of place. "Eleanor!" my father yelled up the grand staircase. "They're here!" My mother appeared at the top of the stairs, a vision in a cream-colored cashmere dress. Her hair was flawlessly styled, her makeup impeccable. She looked down at us, literally. "Alexandra," she said, her voice cool, "you're late. Dinner is in 30 minutes. "The roads were bad, Mother," I said, my voice tight. She glided down the stairs, her movements fluid and practiced. She kissed the air beside my cheek, and I was enveloped in a cloud of expensive, cloying perfume. Then she looked down at Sophie. My Sophie, you've certainly gotten tall." It wasn't a compliment. It was an appraisal, like she was inspecting livestock. "Merry Christmas, Grandma," Sophie said, holding up the small, wrapped box. "I made this for you." My mother's eyes flickered over the box without truly seeing it. She produced a tight, thin-lipped smile. "How lovely. We're opening presents tomorrow morning. Put it under the tree. Try not to disturb the other packages." Sophie's face fell, just a fraction, but I saw it. "Go put your things away," my mother said, already turning from us. "You're in the back guest room, the blue one." "Come on, honey," I said, picking up our 2 suitcases. As we walked past the formal dining room, I saw it. The long, polished table was set for a multi-course dinner. Fine china, sparkling crystal, and more silverware than I knew what to do with. And at each place, a small, elegant white card with a name written in calligraphy. I stopped. Sophie stopped beside me. "Mom, what's wrong?" I counted the place settings. There were 8. I read the names: Mother, Father, Mark, Chloe, Olivia, Liam, and 2 more: Mr. Albright, Mrs. Albright. I didn't know who the Albrights were, but I knew 2 names that were conspicuously absent: Alexandra, Sophie. There were 8 chairs, 8 plates, 8 sets of crystal. My mother had insisted we come for a family Christmas dinner, and she hadn't even set a place for us at the table. She had invited business associates, but she had left no room for her own daughter or her granddaughter. Sophie was looking at the table, her brow furrowed. She was smart. She was counting too. Her face was pale. "Mom," she whispered, her voice tiny. Where do we sit?" A cold, shaking rage began to build in my chest, but I shoved it down. I smiled, turning to her, making my face a mask of casual indifference. "Oh, don't be silly," I said, my voice light and airy. "This is the boring grown-up dinner. We get to eat in the kitchen. It'll be way more fun." Sophie looked up at me. She knew I was lying. My mother swept past us. "Are you two lost?" she asked, her voice laced with impatience. "No, Mother. We were just admiring the table setting. It's stunning." "Yes. Well, the Albrights are very important clients of your father's. Now please, go change. You're holding things up." She disappeared toward the kitchen. I took Sophie's hand. It was ice cold. I led her down a long hallway to the back guest room. It was a small, chilly room, painted a cold, institutional blue. This was the room they used for staff back when they had live-in help. Sophie dropped her backpack on the bed and sat down, her shoulders slumped. "It's okay, honey," I said, my voice sounding fake even to me. "We'll have a great time, just us." "She didn't like my gift, Mom." "She didn't even see it, sweetie. She was just busy. She said we'll open presents tomorrow, remember?" Sophie just stared at the floor. "Okay." I looked out the small window. It was fully dark now. All I could see was our small, snow-covered car, looking out of place and shabby at the end of the long driveway. I knew then. Maya was right. We weren't guests. We were props. We were here to create the illusion of a complete family from a distance, but up close we weren't welcome at the table. We weren't allowed to be a real part of it. I kept smiling for Sophie's sake, smiling so hard my jaw ached. But inside, I was already breaking. The air in that house was cold and suffocating. We had been there for 10 minutes, and I already knew this wasn't Christmas. This was a performance, and we had been given the wrong script. Christmas Eve was a long, cold day of being invisible. We ate breakfast alone in the massive, silent kitchen. A housekeeper I'd never seen before set 2 plates of toast on the granite island and walked away without a word. Sophie tried. I have to give her credit. She really tried. She saw her cousins, Olivia and Liam, in the family room. "Hi, Olivia," Sophie said, holding up her sketchbook. "Want to see some of my drawings?" Olivia, who was 14 and surgically attached to her phone, glanced up with a look of profound boredom. "What?" "Oh, no thanks, I'm busy." She didn't even make eye contact. Sophie's face fell and she quietly walked away. I watched from the kitchen doorway, my fists clenched. My brother Mark and his wife Chloe were having coffee with my parents in the formal living room, laughing and talking about their upcoming ski trip. No one looked our way. No one spoke to us. We were ghosts haunting our own family. I tried to make myself useful. "Mother, is there anything I can do? Help with dinner prep?" "No," she said without looking up from a flower arrangement she was fussing over. "Everything is handled. Just try to stay out of the way. The Albrights will be back this evening. Stay out of the way." I took Sophie outside. We built a snowman in the pristine, powdery snow. It was freezing, but at least we were out of that house. For a little while, we laughed, and it felt almost normal. But then, the cold drove us back inside. Late that afternoon, as I was sitting on the edge of the bed in our cold blue room, my phone rang. Sophie was lying on the other bed reading a book. I looked at the screen. It was my supervisor from work. "Alex," she said, her voice frantic. "I am so sorry. I wouldn't call, but this is a genuine emergency. Judge Miller is at the courthouse right now, and he's only signing emergency placement orders for the next 2 hours. It's the Henderson case, the one with the little girl. The father is a flight risk, and he's threatening to take her out of state tonight. If we don't get the paperwork filed in person, she's gone." My heart sank. A child, a real emergency. I'm in Vail," I said. "I know, I'm so sorry, but you're the only one who knows this case inside and out. Everything is on the cloud. You just have to download it and file it at the local courthouse. Please, Alex. This little girl, she has no one else. I was a social worker. I advocated for children who had no one to fight for them. This was my job." I looked over at Sophie, who was watching me with wide, curious eyes. "Okay," I said. "My decision made. Okay, I'll go. I'm leaving right now." I hung up the phone. "Sophie, sweetie, I have to go out. It's for work. It's a real emergency. A little girl needs my help." Her face fell. "On Christmas Eve? I know, I am so sorry. I will be as fast as I possibly can." I walked into the living room to tell my mother. She was adjusting an ornament on the giant tree. "Mother, I have to go down to the courthouse. It's a work emergency, a child custody case." My mother turned, and she smiled. It was a sudden, brilliant, warm smile that was so unexpected it startled me. "Oh, Alexandra, you go," she said, her voice dripping with the same sweetness from the phone call. "You go be a hero. Save that little girl. Don't you worry about a thing." She walked over and placed a hand on my arm. Her touch felt alien. "What about Sophie? I don't want to leave her alone." "Nonsense," she said brightly. "She'll be perfectly fine. I'll watch her. We'll have a wonderful time. We can finally have a real chat. Get to know each other. It will be our special time." I stared at her. I looked at her smiling, kind face, and a stupid, treacherous part of my brain whispered, "Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the moment. She's being nice." "Are you sure? I don't want her to be a bother." "It is no bother at all, darling. Now you run along. Go. Save the day." I felt a dangerous flicker of hope. "Okay, thank you, Mother. This means a lot to me." I ran back to our room. "Sophie, Grandma is going to watch you. You two are going to have special time together." Sophie's face lit up. "Really? Really?" As I was pulling on my heavy coat, Sophie ran over to me, her eyes shining. She was holding the small gift box. "Mom, this is perfect. I can give Grandma her present while you're gone, when we're all alone. It's the perfect time." She was practically vibrating with excitement. Her hope had been reignited. I kissed her on the forehead. "That's a wonderful idea, sweetie. She will love it. I'll be back before you know it." I rushed out of the house, got into my cold car, and drove away from that glass and wood palace feeling light, hopeful. My mother was smiling. She was going to watch Sophie. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Maya was wrong. I drove to the courthouse as the snow began to fall in earnest. It was dark. I filed the papers. I was a hero. I had protected a vulnerable child. I felt good. It took hours. The courthouse systems were slow, the staff minimal. It was nearly 9 p.m. by the time I finished. I was exhausted, but it was a good exhaustion. I got in my car to drive back, my mind filled with hopeful scenarios. Maybe I'd walk in to find Sophie and my mother drinking hot chocolate by the fire. Maybe they'd be laughing. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I pulled over to the side of the snowy, deserted road. It was a text message from Sophie. My heart seized. I opened it. The message had 9 words that ripped the world out from under me. "Grandma said I'm her mistake. I want to go home." The world went silent. I couldn't hear the car's engine. I couldn't hear the wind howling outside. I just stared at the words on the screen. Said I'm her mistake. I fumbled with the phone, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely type. "Where are you? Are you okay? I'm coming right now." The 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. She was typing. A new message came through. "I'm in our room. I'm scared. Please hurry, Mom." I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. I slammed my foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, tires spinning before finding purchase on the icy road. A woman possessed. That's what they say in old stories. I was a woman possessed. I drove faster than I had ever driven in my life. The snow was a blizzard now, the wipers fighting a losing battle. The car skidded on patches of ice, and I didn't care. Hot, furious, terrified tears streamed down my face. "I left her," I said out loud, "to the empty car, to the storm. I left her alone with that monster. It was a setup. The work emergency was real, but my mother's smile, her kindness. I'll watch her. We can talk." She wanted me gone. She waited until I was gone, until Sophie was alone and vulnerable. her heart full of hope as she offered her little handmade gift. And then she destroyed her. She did it on purpose. "She's not just mean," I whispered, correcting the car as it fishtailed violently. "She's evil." Then I saw the house glowing through the snow, every light on. It looked like a perfect Christmas postcard. It looked like a monster's lair. I slammed the car into park at the end of the driveway, not even bothering to pull in properly. I didn't turn off the engine. I didn't grab my purse. I jumped out of the car and I ran. I ran up the stone steps, slipping and catching myself on the icy surface. I didn't knock. I didn't ring the bell. I grabbed the frozen metal door handle and I threw the front door open with so much force it slammed into the interior wall with a deafening crack, and I ran inside. I stood in the foyer, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The front door was still wide open, a swirl of snow and frigid air billowing into the pristine hall. The house was not quiet. I could hear laughter. It was coming from the dining room. It was my mother's laughter, light, tinkling, and utterly fake. I could hear my brother's voice and the deeper baritone of a man I didn't know. Mr. Albright. They were having their dinner. They were celebrating Christmas. They were laughing while my child was upstairs, alone and terrified. The rage that washed over me was so pure and so absolute, I thought it might burn me up from the inside. I walked past the dining room entryway. I didn't look in. I didn't want to see their faces. I didn't want them to see mine. Not yet. I went to the grand staircase. My boots were caked with snow, and I left a trail of wet, dirty footprints on my mother's perfect white runner. Good. I walked up the stairs, my hand gripping the polished banister so tightly my knuckles were white. I could still hear the clink of silverware from the dining room, the murmur of conversation. They either hadn't heard me come in, or they simply didn't care. I reached the top of the stairs. The long hallway was dark, the only illumination a faint glow from the giant Christmas tree downstairs. Our room, the cold blue guest room, was at the very end. The door was closed. I walked toward it, my heart a dead weight in my chest. I pushed the door open. The room was dark and freezing cold. I saw a small shape on the bed, a lump huddled under the thin decorative blanket. "Sophie?" I whispered. The lump moved. Sophie sat up. In the dim light, her face was a pale oval, her eyes huge and dark. Her cheeks were streaked with dried tears. The new burgundy dress I had been so worried about was crumpled. She wasn't sobbing. She had been crying silently for hours. "Mom," she whispered. Her voice was broken, a tiny, cracked sound that shattered what was left of my heart. "I'm here," I said, crossing the room and sitting on the edge of the bed. I pulled her into my arms. She was as cold as ice. I wrapped my arms around her, and she buried her face in my coat, which was still damp and cold from the snow. She didn't care. She just clung to me, her small body trembling. "I'm here," I said again, rocking her. "I'm so sorry, baby. I never should have left you." "I want to go home," she cried into my coat, her voice muffled. "Please, Mom, I just want to go home." "We will," I promised, my voice fierce. "We are leaving right now. But first, you have to tell me. You have to tell me exactly what she said." She pulled back, her eyes red and swollen. "I waited," she said, her voice shaking so hard she could barely get the words out. "I waited until I heard the guests arrive because I thought she'd be in a good mood. I got my gift." She opened her small hand. In her palm were the pieces of the shattered clay bird. "I found her," Sophie continued. "She was in the dining room, showing Mr. Albright the big painting on the wall. I said, "Excuse me, Grandma, I have something for you." Sophie took a long, shuddering breath. She looked at me, Mom. She didn't smile. I held out the box and I said, "Merry Christmas, Grandma. I made this for you." I closed my eyes, the scene playing out in my mind, vivid and painful. I could see my daughter's hopeful, open face. "She didn't take it," Sophie whispered. "She just stared at the box. And then she looked at me, and she said, 'Why would I want that?'" My heart splintered. I told her. I said, "It's a bird. I painted it for you. It's to say thank you for inviting us." And she laughed, Mom. She laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. Sophie was crying hard now, choking on the words. She said, "I didn't invite you because I wanted you here. I invited you because your mother is a sentimental fool and she would have thrown a tantrum if I didn't. You are not my family. You are her mistake." I couldn't breathe. The air had been sucked out of the room. I was speechless. "And then she said the words," Sophie choked out. "What words, baby?" She looked right at me, her gaze steady despite the tears. She said, "You're not my real granddaughter. Leave." Sophie's face crumpled. I ran, Mom. I just ran. I came up here, and I heard her tell the guests I was a difficult, overly emotional child. I heard them laugh. I dropped the bird, and it broke. She looked down at the shattered pieces in her hand. In that moment, I was not a mother. I was not a daughter. I was a weapon being forged in ice and fire. A clarity I had never known settled over me. The fear was gone. The hope was gone. All that remained was the cold, hard truth. I pulled my phone from my pocket. My fingers were perfectly steady. "Sophie," I said, my voice quiet but firm, "I need you to be brave for one more minute. I need you to say that again. What she said to you." Sophie looked at my phone, confused. "Why?" "Because this is not for revenge," I said, my voice low and intense. "This is for the truth. No one will ever call you a liar. No one will ever be able to say this didn't happen. I will not allow it. Please, baby, just say it one more time." "What did Grandma say?" I pressed the record button. The small red light glowed in the darkness. Sophie looked at the phone. She took a deep, shaky breath and straightened her back. And her voice, small and trembling, but perfectly clear, filled the cold, dark room. I gave her my gift. She said I was a mistake. She said I wasn't her family. Sophie's voice broke into a sob, but she kept going. She said, "You're not my real granddaughter. Leave." I let the recording continue for 10 more seconds. 10 seconds of my daughter's heartbroken sobs echoing in the freezing dark. Then I pressed stop. I saved the file. I put the phone back in my pocket. "Okay," I said. I stood up. "Get your coat." "Are we leaving?" she asked, her voice filled with a desperate hope. "Yes, but we are not running. We are not sneaking out. We are going to walk out the front door. Together." I helped her into her coat and zipped it up. I wiped the tears from her face with the sleeve of my sweater. "Hold your head up high, Sophie," I said, my voice like steel. "You did nothing wrong. You are good, and you are kind, and you are my daughter." She nodded, her eyes still brimming with tears, but she wasn't crying anymore. In the dim light, she looked strong. She looked like me. I took her hand. It was still cold. "I'm ready," she said. I opened the door. The sound of laughter and conversation from downstairs was louder now. "Let's go," I said. And I led my daughter down the stairs to war. We walked down the grand staircase side by side. I didn't care about the melting snow from my boots staining the white carpet. I didn't care about the noise we were making. At the bottom of the stairs, I didn't turn toward the front door. I turned toward the dining room. I walked directly to the wide doorway and stopped. my daughter's hand held tight in mine. She was half hidden behind me. I just stood there. The laughter died first. Then the conversation sputtered out. One by one, 8 faces turned toward us. My mother was at the head of the table, a glass of white wine in her hand. My father was at the other end, his face slack and empty. Mark and Chloe were on one side, Mr. and Mrs. Albright on the other. The table was laden with food, every plate and glass perfectly arranged. My mother's eyes, when they met mine, were as cold as a winter lake. There was no surprise in them, only fury. "Alexandra," she said, her voice sharp and low, "what is the meaning of this? You are interrupting our dinner. We have guests." "I'm aware, Mother," I said. My voice was unnervingly calm. It didn't shake. I wasn't crying. I wasn't yelling. I was simply done. "Sophie," my mother said, her gaze flicking to my daughter, "I told you to stay in your room. You need to learn some manners." That was it. That was the spark that lit the fuse. "Manners?" I said, a strange, cold smile touching my lips. "You want to talk about manners?" I pulled the phone from my pocket. My hands were rock steady. I turned the volume all the way up, and I pressed play. Sophie's small, trembling, recorded voice filled the cavernous room, echoing off the high ceilings. She said I was a mistake. She said I wasn't her family. I saw my brother Mark's face drain of all color. He set his fork down with a clatter. His wife, Chloe, raised a hand to her mouth, her eyes wide with a horrified understanding as she looked at me. My father just stared at his plate, looking old and broken. The guests, the Albrights, stared intently at their own laps, wishing the floor would swallow them whole. Then came the final lines. She said, "You're not my real granddaughter. Leave." And then the sobs, the raw, unfiltered sound of my daughter's heart breaking. The recording ended. The silence that followed was absolute. It was so profound I could hear the gentle tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. My mother's face was a mask of pure, undiluted rage. Her cheeks were flushed a blotchy red. She slammed her wineglass down on the table. "How dare you?" she hissed. "How dare you record in my house? How dare you play that melodrama?" "Did you say it?" I asked, my voice still quiet. "Yes or no?" "She is a child," my mother snapped, deflecting. "She's hysterical. She twists things. She was being rude and demanding my attention. She needed to be taught a lesson." "Did you?" I said, cutting her off, my voice dropping an octave. "Tell my 12-year-old daughter that she was a mistake and not your granddaughter?" "Love is earned, Alexandra," my mother said, her voice turning glacial as she regained her composure. "It is not simply given. You cannot just show up and expect a parade. You can't have a child out of wedlock and expect the world to embrace your mistake. You learn. She learns." I just stared at her, a sense of detached disbelief washing over me. She was admitting it. She was proud of it. "My daughter," I said, "owes you nothing. She is a child. You are the adult. You are the grandmother." "She is not my grandmother," Sophie said. Her voice was small, but it was clear and strong. She stepped out from behind me, her face tear-stained but her eyes blazing. My mother's gaze fell on Sophie, and the look she gave her was pure, unadulterated hatred. "Mark," my mother snapped, not looking away from Sophie, "tell your sister. Tell her what she is. Tell her what she threw away." "Mom, don't," Mark whispered, shrinking in his chair. "Tell her," my mother shrieked, her voice cracking. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Tell her!" Mark looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. He looked utterly pathetic. "Mark, what is she talking about?" I asked. I, he stammered, unable to meet my eyes. "He signed the papers," my mother shouted, her face contorted with ugly triumph. We made him, your father and I. You were cut out, Alexandra, years ago, when you decided to keep her. She pointed a trembling finger at Sophie. We cut you out of everything, she hissed. The house, the money, the inheritance. You have nothing. Mark has it all. We made him sign the legal documents. He agreed. He agreed you were no longer part of this family. The room swam. I looked at Mark. He was openly weeping now, his face in his hands. I didn't want to, he sobbed. Alex, I'm sorry. She made me. She said she'd cut me out too if I didn't. The Albrights were on their feet. Eleanor, Mr. Albright said, his voice strained. This is a private family matter. We should be going. No, my mother yelled. You will sit down. You will bear witness to what happens when one is ungrateful. She turned back to me, a terrible, triumphant smile spreading across her face. So you see, Alexandra, you have no power here. You are a guest I invited out of pity. You have nothing. You are nothing. In the chaos, Chloe, my sister-in-law, stood up, her face pale. I need to check on the children, she stammered, and fled the room. As she passed me, her hand brushed my coat pocket, and I felt something slide in, a thick folded piece of paper. She gave me one quick, terrified glance, and then she was gone. My mother didn't notice. She was too busy savoring her victory, waiting for me to shatter, waiting for me to beg. The inheritance, the money, that's what this had always been about. My mistake had been a financial liability in her eyes, and she was making me and my daughter pay the price. I looked at her, and I felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. I felt a profound pity for her. She had nothing but her money and her cruelty. I took a deep breath. The spinning in my head stopped. I looked at my mother, whose face was flushed with the thrill of the kill. She thought she had won. This isn't about the money, I said. My voice was quiet, but it sliced through the tense silence. My mother's smile faltered. What? I said, this isn't about your money. I don't care about your house. I don't care about your inheritance. I haven't cared about any of that for a decade. I took a step forward. This, I said, my voice resonating with cold fury, is about cruelty. This is about you, a grown woman, deliberately hurting a child. My child. For sport. I told you, she said, her voice rising again. She needed to be taught a lesson. Oh, she taught me one, I replied. Tonight she taught me that I am done. We are done. My mother's face went blank. What did you say? We are leaving, and we are never, ever coming back. I turned, taking Sophie's hand. Stop, my mother commanded. I paused and turned back one last time. If you walk out that door, Alexandra, she said, her voice low and dangerous, you are no longer my daughter. You will not call. You will not speak to your father or your brother. You are dead to this family. Do you understand me? She was giving me one last chance to bend the knee, to apologize, to grovel for my place in a family that despised me. I looked at her. I looked at my father, a ghost staring into his empty glass. I looked at my brother, a weak man who had sold his sister out for a bigger piece of the pie. This wasn't a family. It was a prison. I understand, I said. I took Sophie's hand. Then we're done. I started to walk away. Mom, wait, Sophie said. I stopped. Sophie let go of my hand and walked back toward the table. My mother watched her, a look of confusion on her face. Sophie walked right up to the polished table. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the handful of shattered blue clay. She looked directly at my mother, her eyes shining with tears, but her voice was steady. I thought Christmas was supposed to be about love, Sophie said, not shame. She opened her hand and dropped the broken pieces of the little bird onto my mother's pristine white china plate. The sound was small, a tiny sad clatter. Then she turned, walked back to me, and took my hand. My father made a sound, a deep, gasping sob. He looked at my mother, his face a mask of dawning horror, as if seeing her for the very first time. "Eleanor," he whispered. "My God, Eleanor, you went too far. She's a child. She's your granddaughter." "She is nothing," my mother shrieked, her voice finally breaking. "You are all weak, Harold. All of you." I didn't wait to hear more. I turned with Sophie and we walked out of the dining room. I walked through the foyer. I saw the small, beautifully wrapped gift box, the one Sophie had brought, still sitting untouched under the tree. I walked over, picked it up, and put it in my coat pocket with the folded paper Chloe had given me. This belongs to someone who understands its worth. I opened the front door. The cold air that hit us felt clean. It felt like freedom. I walked out, Sophie by my side. We walked down the stone path, past my brother's expensive SUV. We got to my old, reliable car. I opened the passenger door for Sophie, and she climbed in. I got into the driver's seat and put the key in the ignition. The engine turned over with a comforting rumble. I looked back at the house of glass and dark wood, all lit up like a perfect, beautiful lie. It was a house full of monsters. I put the car in reverse, and I drove away into the snowstorm. I did not look back. The drive back to Portland was a long, silent blur. The blizzard raged, making the roads treacherous. I drove slowly, my hands tight on the wheel. Sophie fell asleep in the passenger seat, her face finally peaceful in the soft glow of the dashboard lights. She was safe. She was away from that house. That was all that mattered. I drove for hours, my mind a million miles away, focused on the two items in my coat pocket. My phone with its damning audio file and the folded papers Chloe had given me. When we finally arrived back at our apartment at 3 a.m, I carried a sleeping Sophie inside. Our little tree was still blinking, its lights casting a warm, familiar glow. The apartment smelled like home. I tucked Sophie into her bed, taking off her coat and boots. She didn't stir. She was utterly exhausted. I covered her with her favorite quilt and kissed her forehead. "You are safe," I whispered. "I will never let anyone hurt you like that again." I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea, my hands still trembling slightly. I sat down at our small kitchen table and took out the papers Chloe had given me. I carefully unfolded them. It wasn't one document, it was a series of them. It was a copy of my father's newly revised will, the one I had just been told about, and stapled to it was a copy of a letter from my mother Eleanor to her personal lawyer. It detailed, in cold, calculating language, her plan to manage Richard, to move all major assets into Mark's name before my father's death, and to ensure that the girl's mistake, me, and the resulting child, Sophie, received absolutely nothing. It was cold, it was methodical, and it was deeply illegal. She had been forging my father's signature on some of the asset transfer forms. She was committing fraud, systematically stealing from her own husband to guarantee I was left with nothing. Chloe had handed me a loaded gun. I looked at the papers, then at my phone sitting on the table beside them. Not for revenge, for the truth. My mother's power wasn't just her money, it was her pristine public reputation. She was Eleanor Pierce, the esteemed head of the Vale Philanthropic Council. She was on the board of 3 major national charities. She was St. Eleanor of the Mountains, the woman who hosted galas for sick children and raised millions for the less fortunate. And she had told her own granddaughter to get out. The silence in my apartment was warm and comforting. The silence in that house had been cold and terrifying. I knew exactly what I had to do. I slept for 2 hours. When the sun came up on Christmas morning, I was at my laptop. I composed 2 emails. The first was to an investigative reporter at the largest newspaper in Colorado, a man who had covered some of my child advocacy cases. The subject line was, "A different kind of Christmas story." In the email, I wrote, "You all know Eleanor Pierce. Here is the truth about the woman you celebrate." I attached the audio file. The second email was to the entire board of directors of the Vail Philanthropic Council. My mother talked about them constantly. I knew all their names. The subject line was, "Financial misconduct of your president, Eleanor Pierce." In the body, I wrote, "I am Alexandra Pierce, Eleanor's daughter. I have attached documents that show a clear pattern of fraud and forgery regarding my father's estate. I have reason to believe she may be employing similar tactics within your organization. I suggest you check your books." I attached scans of the will and the letter to her lawyer, and then I attached the audio file. I added one last line. "This is the woman representing your foundation. This is what she does to a 12-year-old child on Christmas Eve." I hit send on both emails. I shut my laptop, and I went to make Christmas breakfast for my daughter, pancakes. We opened our presents, just the 2 of us. We watched holiday movies and stayed in our pajamas all day. It was the best Christmas of our lives. The call came on December 26th from the reporter. The story ran on the front page of the digital edition on the 27th. Socialite Eleanor Pierce under fire for cruelty toward granddaughter. Shocking audio emerges. The story went viral. The audio file was everywhere. My mother's cold words, my daughter's broken sobs. By New Year's, the financial story broke. Pierce removed from Philanthropic Council amid fraud investigation. They had checked the books. I had been right. She had been embezzling from them for years, small amounts here and there, but it was enough. My father called me once, sobbing. "Alex, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know what she was doing. With the money, with any of it." "I know, Dad," I said softly. "You should talk to a lawyer." He did. My mother lost everything. She lost her position, her power, her seat on every board. Her powerful friends stopped returning her calls. The Albrights gave a statement to the paper confirming they had witnessed the entire event. She lost her reputation, and my father filed for divorce, finally taking his own life back. The silence that followed was not cold or angry. For the first time in my life, the silence that followed was justice. The snow melted. Spring arrived in Portland, warm and green. I came home from work one afternoon to find Sophie at the kitchen table. She had a box of beads and some string. She was carefully making a necklace. My heart did a little flip. "What are you making, sweetie?" I asked. She looked up and smiled, a genuine, full-face smile, the kind I hadn't seen since before that awful trip. "A necklace," she said. I sat down beside her. The beads were bright, happy colors, yellow, pink, and sky blue. "Who's it for?" I asked gently. Sophie picked up a blue bead and slid it onto the string. "This one's for me," she said softly. She held it up, admiring her work. It was beautiful. "Because I know my worth," she said. Tears welled in my eyes, but for the first time in a long time. They weren't tears of sadness or anger. "Yes, you do," I said, hugging her tight. We had visitors that weekend. It was Chloe and my niece, Olivia. They stood awkwardly at our apartment door, looking nervous. Chloe was holding a basket of muffins. "Hi, Alex," she said. Can we come in?" "Of course." They sat on our small sofa. I'm sorry, Chloe said immediately, the words tumbling out. I am so sorry, Alex. For everything, for sitting there in silence for so many years, for Mark. Her face hardened. He's gone, she said, looking down at her hands. When the news broke, he just left. Cleaned out half our joint account and disappeared. He's just like her, weak. I'm sorry, Chloe, I said. I'm not, she said, looking me straight in the eye. I'm filing for divorce. I'm taking my kids and moving back to be near my sister. I am done with that family. Then Olivia, who had been silent, spoke up. She looked at Sophie, who was standing in the doorway. I'm sorry, Sophie, Olivia said, her voice quiet. I was awful to you. I was trying to be like Grandma. I thought she was so cool and strong. Olivia started to cry. She's not strong. She's just mean. I'm so sorry I ignored you. Sophie walked over and sat down on the sofa next to her cousin. It's okay, Lila said. She was mean to you, too. Olivia looked at her, a shared understanding passing between them. Yeah, she whispered. She was. Now we know what family is really supposed to be. Chloe and Olivia stayed for dinner. We ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the living room floor. We laughed. It was nice. It was real. That night, long after they had left, Sophie and I sat on our small balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We could hear the sound of kids playing in the park down the street. There were no mansions, no giant Christmas trees, no polished silver, no pretense, just peace. Sophie was sitting beside me, wearing the new necklace she had made. The little beads sparked in the fading light. I looked at that necklace, and I thought about the other gift, the shattered bird, the evidence of a war we had won. I thought about the inheritance, the money, the house, all the things I had supposedly lost. And I realized with perfect clarity that I hadn't lost a single thing of value. My mother had built her entire empire on a foundation of shame and fear. It was all gone now, turned to dust. I looked at my daughter, my strong, brave, kind daughter. We had built something better. We had built freedom. We had built a life, and it was all ours.